Story number one comes from the Atlanta Falcons. Just a nightmare day. Blow a big lead to the Panthers, lose in overtime, fall to 3-7. Along the way, Michael Penix sustains a knee injury, damage to his ACL, a bone bruise, a sprained knee. He went on IR. Seems likely at this point he'll be done for the season. And then also, Drake London playing at an insanely high level this season. Drake London sustains a PCL sprain. He is week to week, which means, Evan, the Falcons will move forward with the corpse of Kirk Cousins at quarterback, and Darnell Mooney looks like their number one receiver here. It is ugly and scary. Thoughts on Falcons injuries in their game against the Panthers?
It's ugly short term and long term in Atlanta right now. First of all, the optics of having the Falcons' first round pick in 2026, which keeps moving up every time that they lose. The Rams right now would be drafting 8th overall, I believe, in the 2026 draft because they have the Falcons' first rounder. You got that. You got Michael Penix, who has suffered something like 5 season-ending injuries over his last 8 football-playing seasons, a ton of knee stuff.
Three ACL injuries, yep.
Tore his right ACL twice in college. And it looks like, is this an ACL tear? I saw some banter that it might not be, or it is, or whatever. It's definitely a knee injury to the other knee.
The report is there is damage to the ACL, not necessarily a full tear, but damage to the ACL.
And he played poorly enough this season, Michael Penix did, that you don't know if he's the answer. I would lean towards saying that he's not the answer when you add in the fact that he's got this horrific history of injuries. I don't know, a season that started out fairly promisingly for the Falcons. Their defense was playing much higher than expectation, got blown apart here, is going to end. And I think probably the entire thing gets cleaned out. They're going to have a new coach, a new GM, everything in 2026.
God, before we get to the long-term stuff, I wanted to focus a little bit more on what's going to happen short-term here with the Falcons. When we last saw Kirk Cousins, remember he got that spot start against the Dolphins, pretty good spot. He went 21 of 31 for just 173 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, just like no juice whatsoever. The Falcons played that game without Drake London as well. Darnell Mooney had just 1 catch for 11 yards on 4 targets. Kirk Cousins actually looked for Kyle Pitts the most in that game without London. It was Cousins to Kyle Pitts 9 times for 59 yards and no touchdowns. But man, I know Michael Penix has not been good this season. I am worried that Kirk Cousins' arm strength, movement is just like not there at the NFL level right now. And to ask him to do it with Darnell Mooney and Kyle Pitts and David Sills and Cardale Hodge, it's going to be rough. So people are going to say, oh, should I pick up Darnell Mooney? He's the number 1 receiver here, but he's playing with Kirk Cousins. I wouldn't be like that excited about it. What do you think about the Moondog now with Cousins and no London, Evan?
I mean, I definitely think he's worth a pickup, but I would have pretty measured expectations. My expectations would be a little bit higher for Kyle Pitts, I think, but it's really based on one game. Kirk Cousins didn't look like an NFL quarterback for the vast majority of last year, and he certainly didn't in that spot start as well. The Falcons have had all kinds of issues on the interior offensive line lately. Of course, they lost Caleb McGarry before the season. So, I mean, their offense right now is just a complete train wreck. As you mentioned, Darnell Mooney, David Sills, Cardale Hodge, that is ugly, ugly, ugly in the wide receiver core. Drake London, by the way, you know, we have a pretty decent sample size of PCL injuries, especially in the recent history. Kyle Pitts, his teammate, took like years to come back fully from his PCL injury. I don't even know if he's fully back yet. We saw Ricky Pearsall miss 6 weeks due to a PCL injury, was never placed on IR. So that was behind the timeline that the 49ers originally set for him. Brock Bowers had a PCL injury. So, you know, these can be really, really tricky ones for Drake London. And soon enough, if not already, the Falcons season has been lost. So at some point, the Falcons may lose any incentive to bring Drake London back.
One thing that the Falcons did say coming out of this is they're going to try to get more run heavy. And that's not surprising, right? You lose your starting quarterback. You lose one of the best receivers in the league. You have Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier. You get more run heavy. So we're going to shift their play calling a little bit here in projection, I think, going forward. The problem is when you're bad, it's hard to be more run heavy, right? And so like there's some push and pull there for sure. I just want to say, hopefully you're able to buy on Bijan Robinson or play him in DFS. That really depressed ownership last week. There was so much ridiculous FUD around Bijan Robinson coming into this game against the Panthers with all the Algier stuff and the goal line. Bijan was unreal in this game, scores twice, even though Algier stole one. So yeah, still really high on Bijan here, even with everything else going on. Evan mentioned the draft pick thing. The worst part about this draft pick to the Rams is everybody said at the time, it was obvious at the time, this was a horrible trade. They moved up to 26th overall to take James Pierce, and they gave up their first round pick, which is now in the top 8, as Evan said. I mean, that is going to go down as a really, really, really bad process trade because it's not about results. Like at the time, that was a bad process trade, period. Story number 2. Jaguars put a beat down on the Chargers 35-6 Sunday. They did it without Brian Thomas, was not quite ready with his ankle sprain, did it without Travis Hunter, who of course is out for the year. The story to me of this game was Bashal Tutin finally making his move. Bashal Tutin was leading Travis Etienne 15-12 in carries. Shout out to Jack Miller for charting that. 15-12 in carries, Tutin ahead of Etienne at the time of Tutin's injury. And Tutin just continues to be ultra impressive on a per-touch basis. Now, this ankle injury does not appear to be overly serious. I would call him day-to-day. He didn't come back into the game. Maybe he could have, but I would consider him day-to-day right now. And if he's okay, this is a really exciting turn of events for Bashal Tutin. So, Evan, how sticky do you think this change might be for Tutin, assuming that he is healthy here?
Well, as someone that was optimistic that this was going to happen weeks ago, I think that it should be sticky. And I also think that it can be sticky because I think that Liam Cohen is frustrated with the progress that Trevor Lawrence has not made. And also the fact that Travis Hunter is done for the year. Brian Thomas was playing like buns before, his ankle thing. So I think that they want to be a run-heavy team, and they blew the Chargers off the ball in this game. I mean, it was also like LaQuint Allen. They were blown up. Khalil Mack was getting shoved all around by the Jacksonville offensive line. I think that this is how Liam Cohen wants to play. The Jaguars are still very much in the playoff hunt. They're going to need multiple backs to be able to execute an offense like this. They're going to need their best on defense as well. I mean, this is a tough formula to win with in today's NFL, but I think that this gives them their best chance is to play, maximize their defense and run the ball with volume and create explosive plays with their running game because they're not getting that from their passing game at this point.
I mean, Bashal Tutin passes the eye test, man. If you just watch Bashal Tutin, I mean, he is explosive off the line. Not that Travis Etienne isn't. I actually think Travis Etienne has had a pretty decent year and has been good on the eye test as well. Success rate is something that I think coaches care about, maybe care about too much. But if they do care about that, Tutin is at 51.7% success rate this season. Travis Etienne down at 42.9%. Etienne is ahead of Tutin in some other metrics. But yeah, and this was Monday. Liam Cohen, this is via Coach Speak Index. On Monday, Liam Cohen said, I thought Tutin ran hard. He ran downhill. A couple third down runs got us vertical. He did a really nice job. Obviously, so did Etienne and Allen. But Tutin has been practicing better and better. And as much as we can continue to get him involved, the better our offense is. So I do think there is like something sticky going on here. This was intentional. We have not seen this all year where Tutin is ahead of Etienne in carries at really any point.
We have now seen several games in a row since the Jaguars bye where the Jaguars have been really low in PROE.
Mm-hmm.
They have embraced being a run-heavy team. Now, what they did on Sunday is going to be really tough to repeat. This was maybe the most lopsided result of any game all year. The Jaguars had the ball for 38 minutes to 22 for the Chargers, and they ran 70 plays on offense. The Chargers only ran 45. So the Jaguars just possessed the ball for the vast, vast, vast majority of the game. That's going to be tough to repeat, but they're really leaning into the run, and it's nice to see Bashal Tutin as a featured part of that now.
So only 24 dropbacks for the reasons that Evan just said. 24 dropbacks for Trevor Lawrence. Still good to see Jacoby Myers get up to speed here. 20 routes on 24 dropbacks for Jacoby Myers. Parker Washington led the team in routes with 22. Then Tim Patrick, 16. when Brian Thomas Jr. gets back, and I do think he'll be back here this week, I suspect it will be Brian Thomas Jr. and Jacoby Myers in 2 wide receiver sets. You bring on Parker Washington to play slot in 3 wide receiver sets. But yeah, it's tough to get excited about any of these guys now. Trevor Lawrence is not a talent elevator, and they're going very run heavy. Story 3 comes from Denver, a massive franchise morale boosting win for the Broncos over the rival Chiefs on Sunday. Broncos have now won 8 straight games. They're 9-2 overall. They are the current number 1 seed in the AFC, and they get to go on a bye here in week 12. So just a really, really good win for the Broncos. I'll get to the running back stuff here in a second, but Evan, your reaction to Broncos taking the number 1 seed here in the AFC with a home win over the Chiefs?
Yeah, 8 wins in a row now for Denver, the longest winning streak in the NFL. They get to play Washington on the other side of the bye as well, which is really nice for them. I thought that this was one of Bo Nix's best games. I mean, he's really inconsistent play to play, down to down. But I thought that this, considering the opponent, the Chiefs have been playing good defense. This was maybe his best game of the season, especially coming off that horrific game against the freaking Raiders on Thursday night. My goodness. But Bo Nix went 5 for 8 on passes of 15-plus air yards in this game. Bo Nix went 5 for 8 for 156 yards. And he did this all with the Broncos really struggling to run the ball. We'll talk about, I'm sure you want to talk about R.J. Harvey. The Broncos' longest run in this game was 8 yards by Bo Nix. So I think an impressive performance. I don't know that it's predictive of anything for Bo Nix moving forward, but it shows that he can play at an above competent level because he's been really shaky throughout the year. And even in this game, he was shaky quarter to quarter. But overall, I thought this was one of his best performances.
I mean, it's a credit to the defense that they're 9-2, right? Because the offense, let's be honest, has not been that good this season. And Bo Nix has not been that good this season. They are 9-2 in large part due to our boy Nick Bonito and the rest of that defense. The big fantasy story here, though, and why this is a top story, was this was the first game that we got to see the Broncos without J.K. Dobbins, who is now out for the season with a Liz Frank injury. Snaps were R.J. Harvey, 38, Jaleel McLaughlin, 8, Tyler Bidet, 8. Routes, Harvey, 20, Bidet, 5, Jaleel, 2. Opportunities, Harvey, 14, Jaleel, 7, Bidet, 1. Now, people are going to say, oh, but Adam, Jaleel got the goal line work. I don't think that was intentional. When Jaleel scored there, that was in the third quarter, Harvey touched the ball in 3 straight plays, gets the Broncos down to the 8-yard line. He looks like he's a little bit gassed. Jaleel comes in, gets 2 carries, and punches it in. So I see no reason why McLaughlin would be the goal line back intentionally ahead of RJ Harvey. So I know there's a lot of people out there victory lapping and everything. Like, you see, I told you it was going to be a 3-man backfield and Harvey's not that valuable. Harvey played 38 snaps compared to 8 for McLaughlin and 8 for Tyler Bidet. In better matchups, I think RJ Harvey is actually going to be pretty valuable. So if people want to panic and dump on RJ Harvey right now, I'd be a buyer. Evan, what do you think of Harvey's first feature back role here as a pro?
Yeah, I mean, obviously he was not successful. We didn't get the fantasy result that we wanted, but I actually think that it was you could have promising takeaways from that. In that, and that's why it's important to look beneath the hood a little bit on situations like this. Like coming out of the bye, going up against Washington, that is going to be a sweet spot for RJ Harvey. You look back, he only scored 8 fantasy points in the previous game, but we know that he was ticketed for a very, very large role. He's going to have a much better matchup. He'll have that bye to kind of settle in to that lead back role for the Broncos. I'd be excited about RJ Harvey despite the lukewarm Week 11 result.
Last note for me on the Broncos was Marvin Mims has kind of gotten iced out here. Now, he was hurt, but since he's been back, it's been Sutton, Franklin, and Pat Bryant as the primary receivers in 3 wide receiver sets. Marvin Mims only ran 13 routes in this game. I don't think that means Marvin Mims is done as like a featured rotational wide receiver. We'll see what happens during the bye. But for now, at least in these last couple games since Mims has been back, again, the 3 wide receiver set is very clearly Sutton, Franklin, and Pat Bryant.
I kind of think that's going to stick because Pat Bryant has low-key been balling lately. I mean, he's made a bunch of big plays down the football field, and they love him as a blocker. So I sort of believe that Pat Bryant is locked into 3 receiver sets for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, and Marvin Mims is still a valuable part of the team as one of the best return guys, in the league. So still a valuable part of the team as a rotational fourth receiver and a return guy. Number 4 story from this week, the Jets. This was the Thursday game. Jets lose to the Patriots. I thought Fields ran really well, but missed a ton of throws as usual. Obviously, it's tough without Garrett Wilson. To me, it's obvious that their only chance with Fields was to go full RB, 10 to 15 designed runs per game. After the game, Aaron Glenn comes out and says, we can't put Justin in a situation where he's a running back because we're putting him in harm's way. So, okay, if you want to say that, then you have to bench him. And guess what? That's exactly what the Jets did. On Monday, Jets announced Tyrod Taylor is their new starter. They are sitting Justin Fields down. Evan, your reaction to the Jets officially pulling the plug here on the Justin Fields experiment?
I mean, it's not surprising based on the performance on the field. Obviously, Tyrod Taylor, or 36-year-old journeyman, is not the answer. It's pathetic on the part of Justin Fields that he's getting benched for a career backup. And it's not going to add anything, I don't think, to the offense. So I don't. It's just unfortunate. I mean, Justin Fields was the number 11 pick in the draft. He definitely, he clearly wasn't an above average starting quarterback for the Bears, but I mean, he had moments, and the Jets thought of enough of him to give him a 2-year, $40 million deal with $30 million guaranteed. That's not breaking the bank by quarterback standards by any means, but I'm surprised that it's come to this with Justin Fields, that he is this bad, one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL, considering his resume and his track record. I didn't think that it was going to get this bad.
Yeah. Going forward, Tyrod Taylor has played 120 snaps this season. That's about 2 games worth. In those 2 games, Tyrod Taylor has run it 14 times for 80 yards. He's also completing 62% of his passes this season, which is fine. Same as Justin Fields was, though. I could see Tyrod settling the team down a little bit. I don't think it makes a big difference, but just fewer mistakes, fewer boom bust plays, maybe a few more first downs. It's just hard when you have no one to throw to. And this was for Fields too. I mean, their receiver core without Garrett Wilson is the worst in the league. So, and your defense is getting, flamed now. So yeah, it's tough for sure.
We should mention A.D. Mitchell.
Yes.
In the previous game against New England on Thursday night, they gave him some opportunities. He had 6 targets. He was 4th among Jets wide receivers in snaps, but he dropped 3 passes and had 1 catch for 10 yards. Look, he just got onto the team. But, I mean, I think that they're going to continue. It makes sense for them to continue to give him opportunities. I would not be optimistic about him emerging as a fantasy asset, but a player to keep track of down the stretch.
Oh, I think he's always open, man. He can play. It is hard in the NFL.
Oh, he was open, yeah.
It is hard in the NFL to get open at the rate that A.D. Mitchell gets open. He is wide open a lot. He just can't catch the ball, and he has all the off-field issues, and now he has quarterback play concerns. But, yeah, I agree on A.D. Mitchell, someone that I'd probably still want to stash on a deep dynasty bench. The Breece Hall thing, I do think that Tyrod is a little bit better for Breece Hall, but there's going to be a lot of games here down the stretch for this for Breece. So, talked last week about trying to sell on Breece after that week 10 performance. Here he gets 16 touches. Scoring touchdowns is hard. Catching the football is hard from Tyrod. It's just hopefully you're able to sell already on Breece. Story 5, the Chicago Bears. Bears somehow find a way to win again, stage a 4th quarter comeback, and beat the Vikings 19-17. Caleb Williams was unimpressive, to me again, completes just 16 of 32 passes. But the big news, at least, and the reason why this is a top story, after 2.5 months of playing behind inefficient Olamide Zaccheaus, Luther Burden has finally moved ahead. Truth or Burden crew, rise up. Burden 22 routes in this game, Zaccheaus 7. So that's exciting for Luther Burden. I don't know that Caleb can actually support 3 pass catchers right now, but it's at least exciting for Burden. Evan, how aggressive would you be on Burden on the waiver wire if he's out there? And any more thoughts on Bears stuff right now?
I mean, we're getting to the point in the season where you be aggressive. If there's someone even halfway decent on the wire, I think you'd be aggressive, and you can do that with Luther Burden. Yeah, I mean, it's not just Caleb being sort of up and down. God, the lack of touch that he puts on so many throws. You'll see drop numbers at the end of games for his receivers. That doesn't add the context of like Caleb is just rifling the ball at receiver. He's got to work on his touch at some point, and his accuracy, I think, can also be frustrating. But yeah, I mean, Luther Burden. I mean, this has been largely an offense that plays three receivers on like 60% of their snaps. And so Luther Burden's going to get a decent chunk of playing time, but it's still going to be, Rome Odunze and DJ Moore in two receiver sets, and they use Colston Loveland and Cole Kmet as well. So, I mean, I think Luther Burden is just going to be really, really inconsistent. He may have some spikes because he's a super, super talented player. There were good draft analysts who thought that Luther Burden was maybe the most talented wide receiver in the draft. So I think he's worth a shot. But, again, you have to remember, like, this is a run-first offense. And DeAndre Swift is, like, kind of balling. It's like ever since he missed that game against Cincinnati and Kyle Monangai went off, DeAndre Swift, like, reached an extra gear. Actually, during this game, Tom Brady was really talking up. Actually, Tom Brady gave DeAndre Swift his player of the game after the game, but he was really hitting it hard between the tackles, and that's something that DeAndre Swift has been criticized for in the past. But this is very much a run-first offense, and I don't think that that's going to change this year because of the complexion of the roster.
Yeah, Ben Johnson was asked about how to divvy up game reps for Swift and Monangai, and this is also from Coach Beak Index. He said it might be series by series, it might be hot hand. We kind of go based on what we see in practice a lot of the time. I feel really good about both of those guys. So, yeah, it's going to be a little bit unpredictable, I think, in the backfield, but they're both playing well right now, as Evan said. Other note for me on Bears. I mean, I get Cole Kmet played a good game here. He still ran more routes than Colston Loveland. Kmet 23 routes, Loveland just 21 in this game. Passer rating when targeted this season, Loveland 124.4, which is excellent. Kmet 93.4. which is poor. So I just love to see more Cole Kmet. If you're listening out there, Ben Johnson.
More Colston Loveland.
More Colston Loveland, I'm sorry.
Who, by the way, is having decent games despite being a clearly part-time player. I mean, he had a sick catch for 24 yards in this game, down the seam, breaking tackles. He's a special talent. I mean, I think that you've been able to see that over the last month. Colston Loveland is going to be, he has a chance to be a star in the league. He looks unbelievable when he gets his opportunities. He just needs more to fulfill for our purposes in fantasy.
100%. Reminder, next week we will have our special annual Thanksgiving free shows. 2 of them ahead of the Thanksgiving slate. Be sure to hit subscribe here on YouTube. It is completely free. Also, next week, we will launch the only sale we run all season, our Black Friday sale. So if you have not yet tried our NFL in-season product to get access to all our projections, premium shows, Silva's matchups, etc., next week is great time to try it. Again, stay tuned for the Black Friday content and sales next week. All right, let's go to the NFC now. We'll start with the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, same story for the Cardinals. They do it again. They fall behind big early, and then Jacoby Brissett ends up chucking. 57 pass attempts for Brissett, 47 completions in this game. And so with Marvin Harrison out with that appendectomy, we get huge games from Greg Dortch, Trey McBride, and Michael Wilson. And this is pretty embarrassing for Mazda Marv. I mean, one game as the alpha, and Michael Wilson does more than Mazda Marv has done in his entire career. So, Evan, I ended up playing Michael Wilson in cash on DK. I'll be lying if I thought he was going to have a really good game. I just thought he was like a punt salary saver. This Michael Wilson game is absolutely absurd. Thoughts on that and the Cardinals game against the 49ers?
Yeah, you just waste no opportunity to just shovel dirt on the grave of Marvin Harrison Jr., the poor guy. I mean, has Marvin Harrison Jr. ever had a game where his quarterback threw for 452 yards and had 57 pass attempts? I don't know about that. I mean, look, Michael Wilson, I don't want to take anything away from him. This was the Harry Douglas corollary. Do you remember when Drew Dinkmeyer originally won the Millie Maker back in like 2015? Julio Jones was out. He was like, I'm playing Harry Douglas. Harry Douglas, like the dirtiest wide receiver in the NFL. He was the guy who, like, he'd be lined up to, run a route, and then he'd just like dive at the defensive back's ankles and take out their knee and tear their ACL. Actually, we did a bit. Remember, like, someone, we were talking about this maybe like 4 years ago, and someone did like turn this into a short, and then Harry Douglas caught wind of it, and he thought it was like the funniest thing that he'd ever seen. Like, we were calling him Harry Douglas. Anyways, Drew Dinkmeyer won the Millie Maker by just plugging in the guy who was going to play in place of Julio Jones. That's exactly what happened with Michael Wilson in this case. But he balled out. The Cardinals got their ASS handed to them in the game, but Jacoby Brissett, breaks the record, the all-time record for most completions in a game. Trey McBride, of course, got there. Greg Dortch, even, who I was kind of worried, like, God, Michael Wilson has like 130 yards by the early in the third quarter, and I had been kind of on Dortch, not kind of, like a decent amount. Dortch still got there with 6 for 66. Everyone got there.
Yeah.
So it was beautiful to see. I have a high stakes league where we were trying to decide for this week between Tua against Washington, Jameis against the Packers, Jacoby Brissett against the 49ers. We decided on Jacoby Brissett, and he led us to a smashing victory.
The thing is, even if Kyler gets into this game script, I don't think this happens for him, right? Like, it's not even close, right? So, like, clearly Jacoby Brissett has been a huge, huge upgrade. And when Marvin Harrison gets back, he will benefit from Jacoby Brissett being a huge upgrade here as well. Trey McBride has, I believe, 6 touchdowns in his last 5 games after being unable to score touchdowns with Kyler Murray. It's just crazy.
Yeah. Trey McBride used to have an allergy to the end zone, and then Jacoby Brissett just smashed him with the vaccine, and he was able to overcome that end zone allergy. It's been great to see for Trey McBride.
Quickly on the running backs for Arizona, Emari Demercado sustained a high ankle sprain in this game. He is not expected to play week 12 and probably beyond. After Demercado went down in this game, it was a lot more Michael Carter than Bam Knight. I kind of suspect that that's because they were trailing by so much, and also because Bam Knight came into this game questionable with an ankle injury. But yeah, it's going to be tough between those two guys. I will say, I finally saw a Trey Benson report, Evan. I don't even know it was real. It felt like a Bigfoot figment of my imagination. But I think I saw a Trey Benson report that he'll be back in practice this week. We'll see if he does, though. So looking forward to that on Wednesday to see if we can get Trey Benson's practice window opened here and get him back in practice. Panthers stage a wild comeback, beat the Falcons 30-27 in overtime. I think the game plan here was the same as it's been. Hide Bryce, run the ball, slow the game down, squeeze out a win. But they got behind early. They were down 21-10 at half. The run game surprisingly just could not do anything here. I thought the run game would perform well against the Falcons. They did not. And you end up with 51 Bryce Young dropbacks. In the previous 7 games, Bryce had averaged just 28.6 dropbacks per game. And so when you see Bryce drop back 51 times, you can see Ted McMillan is maybe the NFL's best rookie or one of the NFL's best rookies this season. We just haven't seen it because Bryce never throws. They're just hiding him. So good to see that. Evan, what do you think of Panthers' win over the Falcons?
Yeah, and I was on the Panthers to cover, maybe even get the outright in this game. So it was really, I was very happy, especially for Vitus James, our one of our most loyal participants on the Sunday morning show. He bet his entire mortgage on the Panthers in this game, and he was able to pull out that victory.
See,
so shout out to.
I don't think he did, because he likes to. He says, "What does Evan like?" So he can take the opposite side. So he said
this week he was riding.
Oh, this week he said he was riding. All right, shout out to you then. Congrats on the mortgage.
That's gotta be congrats on paying off the mortgage, Vitus. But yeah, the process was completely 180. I mean, I thought it was Rico Dowdle, he's going to run the ball down the Falcons' throats, and I don't know. I guess you could say, because the game did go to overtime, backpacking back from Germany maybe cost the Falcons in the end, but Bryce Young, the best game of his career.
Yeah.
This, against a Falcons defense that the strength had been their pass defense, and Ted McMillan cooks them, and Xavier Legette cooks them, and Tommy Tremble out of Notre Dame comes up with the 54-yard catch and run to set up the game-winning field goal. Unbelievable game. This was probably the most wild game of any game in Week 11, and there were a lot of wild games in Week 11. But it's nice to see that Bryce Young is actually capable
Right.
of something like this. Because if you would ask me, 48 hours ago or 72 hours ago or whatever, is Bryce Young capable? Absolutely not.
Right. And yeah, I think that's an important point that he is capable of this. And I do think it was a notable change. Dave Canales talked about this in an interview. Tedero McMillan, instead of being pinned to the outside, played a lot more slot, moved all over the formation. And you see this with rookies sometimes where they start off learning one position, one wide receiver position, and then by the end of the year, they're moving all around. So that's really good for Tet. I will say, Panthers think they're have a good team and they're going to make the playoffs and make noise. They're going to do whatever it takes to win. And I think what they think to win, I do not think this will inspire them to drop back Bryce Young more. I still think our base case for them in game planning should be extreme conservative, hide Bryce, run the ball. But maybe now a little bit more faith in Bryce if they get behind in games to try to let him cook. By the way, Evan,
the Tet rookie season has been, just to put a little exclamation on that, there were, draft prospectors that thought that he was just a perimeter clasher who wasn't necessarily a big-time separator. There were other draft experts who believed that Ted McMillan needed to be a big slot. Guess what? He can do both. He's been really impressive also after the catch.
Yeah.
So I'm so bullish on Ted McMillan long term, even though up until this point his numbers had been okay. But I would be really, really excited about him to have him in Dynasty or anything like that. He's got to be a fringe first-round pick in Dynasty.
Yeah, I'm curious who you would vote for Rookie of the Year right now, because Egbuka is the favorite, and then Jackson Dart. McMillan is third, Tyler Warren fourth, and Travion Henderson fifth right now. Obviously, if Bryce keeps dropping back, I think McMillan is good enough to end up winning it, but Egbuka and Dart have certainly had really good seasons, Tyler Warren and Travion as well. Who would you vote for right now?
That is a wide open race, I'll tell you. That would be a fun race to bet on because that's very, very much wide open.
Yeah.
I think I would go with Egbuka right now because he has carried the Tampa Bay passing game in the absence of Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. I would have him right now, but he's slowed down a little bit. The recency bias obviously is strong with Ted McMillan right now. I would have Emeka Egbuka over the course of the year, though, as Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Good spot for Bryce and Tet to stay hot here. They play the 49ers on Monday night. That decimated defense. We'll get to them here in a minute. Cowboys. This was the Monday night game, and Cowboys offense just absolutely cooked in Vegas. Dak goes off 25 of 33, 4 touchdowns. Actually should have had 5 touchdowns. Just an outrageous drop by CeeDee Lamb on a 4th down to walk into the end zone. But Cowboys still win 33-16. Showcase game for George Pickens, who I think everybody now sees one of the best receivers in the NFL and is going to absolutely break the bank in free agency this offseason. Evan, what do you think of Cowboys' win over the Raiders last night?
People might scoff at it because it's the Raiders, but the Raiders actually had played pretty competent defense up until this. They're league average, which is saying something for a defense that has Max Crosby and then just a bunch of guys. But for the Cowboys to come out and light them up like they did, I thought that was great, especially as someone who has a ton of Cowboys everywhere. And we kind of needed to see that from the Cowboys because you remember they had a game against Denver where they just got steamrolled. Mm-hmm. They had a game against Arizona where they did not live up to expectations. The Cardinals had one of those games where they they play above their heads defensively and they just maximize their talent on defense and they can have good games defensively. And then the Cowboys had a bye. So it had been a month since the Cowboys had a big offensive effort, and we got that here. God, George Pickens. The latest report is that the Cowboys are going to place the franchise tag on him. That should be a very, very easy call. Mm-hmm. But he, in terms of production, he's been right there he's outproduced CeeDee Lamb since CeeDee Lamb came back from his high ankle sprain.
Pickens is now fantasy's number 4 wide receiver in points per game behind only JSN, Puka, and Drake London. So just a huge, huge hit there in the mid rounds on George Pickens. I will say, Cowboys have some tough games coming up. Now, all these are in a dome, but next 4 games, Eagles, Chiefs, Lions, and Vikings. So, it's not going to be as easy as it was last night, but at least they're in a dome. Small note, Malik Davis, they cut, like they did the Michael Carter thing where they cut him, and then it's so insulting when you cut a guy and no one else is going to pick him up, and then you can just bring him back. That's what the Cowboys did with Malik Davis, and he was active over Jaden Blue, who's been a healthy scratch each of the last 2 games. So, yeah, really, really rough rookie season here for Jaden Blue, who can't even get active over Malik Davis. Let's go to the Lions. This was the Sunday night game. I get it. Philly is a really tough place to play, really talented defense, but this was the first game without Sam Laporta, and the Lions really struggled on offense. I mean, Jared Goff was getting balls batted down at the line. They go 3 of 13 on third down to the Lions and 0 of 5 on fourth down. They still were in the game until that horrific pass interference call late, but end up losing 16-9. Evan, concerning offensive performance here from the Lions. What do you think happened to them?
I don't think it's concerning. I think that it's, in hindsight, at least, fairly understandable. You got Jared Goff playing outside. You've got an Eagles defense that, looks like the best in the league right now, at least since they acquired Jalen Phillips for a song. The Eagles defense, the secondary played lights out. Adoree Jackson played the game of his life, took away Amon-Ra St. Brown. Adoree Jackson has not been good this year. Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell might be the best cornerback in the NFL. Vic Fangio. In hindsight, at least, I think it's actually not surprising. You know who didn't struggle, though?
Waymo for JMO.
Yes, sir. At halftime of the Sunday night game, I don't know what you were doing at halftime, but I turned on YouTube clips of Jameson Williams returning kickoffs at Alabama. And, man, this guy is shot out of a cannon. He's had 3 big games in a row. Dan Campbell loves him. Great blocker, unselfish, baller with the ball in his hands. Is Jameson Williams the most complete receiver in the NFL? Change my mind.
So the first game without Laporta, and you get the targets condensing around 3 guys: Jahmyr Gibbs, Jameson Williams, and Amon-Ra combined for 27 of Jared Goff's 37 targets. And so that's what you get when you start removing guys from this offense, condensing on the really good guys. Because, man, these 7 Brock Wright targets, that's just a win for the defense, right? Like, we do not need to be targeting Brock Wright 7 times. It should be even more condensed around the 3 guys that I just mentioned. And yeah, it was cold. It was windy. It was against Philly. It was in Philly. Lions' next 6 games are all in a dome. Giants, Packers, Cowboys, Rams, Steelers, and Vikings all in a dome. And you get Laporta out, and you get Campbell calling the plays. So it is just an exciting time to have Lions, guys. If anybody was to be selling Lions off of this bad game in Philly, I'd be buying big time here right now.
I wanted to note, this is a statistic from Jacob Gibbs, by the way, of CBS, does a great job with the stats every week. Jahmyr Gibbs had a 72% snap rate in this game. That is the highest of Jahmyr Gibbs' career in games where David Montgomery has been active, and a 22% target share, and that helps you get to 107 receiving yards, another career high for Jahmyr Gibbs. So I thought that was really nice. To go back to Jared Goff, he had 6 passes batted down at the line of scrimmage. When he wasn't throwing high to get it batted down, he was missing low. He went 1 of 14 when under pressure. And now, and again, I said before, this is not really concerning. I don't think that it is, because of everything that you just mentioned. Because he's going back home. He's got the Giants next, because every single game is played in a dome the rest of the way.
Yes, every for the fantasy season, rest of the fantasy season, every game is in a dome. Yes.
These are very exciting times if you have Jameson Williams or Jahmyr Gibbs or Jared Goff, or even, certainly Amon-Ra St. Brown, even David Montgomery, I think is going to end up being okay down the stretch, because the Lions are going to be scoring a lot of points down the stretch.
Let's go to the Green Bay Packers. Packers beat the Giants 27-20 at a windy MetLife. Had a scare as Jordan Love left with a left shoulder injury, but came back in and finished the game. Seems like he should be okay. Not quite as fortunate on Josh Jacobs. He left with a knee injury. The good news was they did all the testing, came back clean structurally, so he won't need surgery, but he is considered week to week. We got to look at Emmanuel Wilson as the feature back after Jacobs left. Handled himself fine in a very good matchup. They also have Chris Brooks, and Marshawn Lloyd could be designated from return from IR this week. So Jacobs, I think, is probably going to miss this week. Hopefully not much beyond that, but we'll see. And we'll also see on Marshawn Lloyd. Evan, what do you think of Packers win over the Giants?
I mean, I think it was a little close for comfort for them. I was on the Giants to cover 7, and it wound up being a push. And it was very close to not being a push. Some stuff that happened at the end of the game that we'll talk about when we get to the Giants. And I know that the Packers wound up scoring 27. I've really lost faith in their offense. I think that Jordan Love is not 100%. No Tucker Kraft matters a lot. No Elton Jenkins, their 2-time Pro Bowl center, I think matters. None of their receivers have really stepped up. Luke Musgrave finished 3rd among the Packers tight ends in snaps in this game. And I know that there are some explanations out there. Great call by Sam. I know that Sam Brott, who we talked about at the beginning of the show, he was on Christian Watson. Christian Watson didn't have a big yardage number here, but he scored a couple of touchdowns. He made plays in contested situations, which is not always something at which Christian Watson has excelled. So love to see that. I believe he played the most of the Packers receivers in this game as well. And Matthew Golden returned as the 4th receiver. So I think that the 3 receiver set, or at least the top 2 going forward, I can say with some confidence, I think it's Romeo Doubs, who had 2 bad drops in this game, and Christian Watson, because we're always dealing with that committee in Green Bay, but I think we've got the 2 locked in, and that's Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson.
Yeah, so 30 times Jordan Love dropped back. Watson led the way with 25 routes, then Doubs 22, Wicks 17, Matthew Golden 11 as he comes off that shoulder injury. I should also note that Jaden Reed could be designated for return from IR this week. So both him and Lloyd at least have a chance to get designated here. And yeah, just to follow up on what Evan said about Luke Musgrave, I was actually shocked that Luke Musgrave played so little. And apparently Matt LaFleur was as well, because after the game, Matt LaFleur said Luke Musgrave absolutely needs to play more snaps than whatever snaps he played in the second half yesterday. We'll make sure that happens. I've already addressed it with our staff. I just think he's a guy. He's talking about Musgrave. He's a guy we have to get on the field. So shout out to Coach Speak Index for that also. And yeah, I mean, John Fitzpatrick and Josh Wiley playing more than Luke Musgrave. I didn't really get that at all. So weird thing there for sure. Would you pick up Jaden Reed, Evan, if he was available in your league?
I would probably let someone else pick him up.
Yeah.
I don't know how he's going to fit in. I mean, they'll find a place for him. He's like a really nice addition for the Packers who need some juice on offense right now.
Yeah.
In real life, he's a nice addition for the Packers. I don't know how we're going to even know when to start him in fantasy. I just let somebody else deal with that.
All right. Let's go to the Rams. This was the massive NFC West game. Rams take care of business, beat the Seahawks 21-19, moved to 8-2. Stafford also moved ahead of Drake May as the favorite in the MVP race, even though I didn't think it was Matthew Stafford's best game here. I mean, only 130 passing yards on 28 attempts, missed Devontae Adams wide open over the middle. But Rams pick off Sam Darnold 4 times, take control of the NFC West. Evan, what do you think of Rams' big win over the Seahawks?
Oh, that's so lame that Stafford moved ahead of Drake May. I mean, this was like one of Stafford's weakest games of the year.
Yeah.
It's just because the Rams won.
Yep.
Like solely because the Rams got the victory.
In a really big game, that stuff's going to matter. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was the biggest game of the week. But yeah, I mean, I don't really have a whole lot to, I don't have like big takeaways from this game. Do you? Tyler Higbee got hurt.
Yeah.
Ankle injury, but I don't have any big takeaways.
Yeah. I'd love for the tight end room to get thinned out, but Higbee sounds like he's just day to day. So I think it's just going to be okay. The one thought that I had was coming into this game, this was obviously a really big game. Maybe we'd see Kyren Williams like reassume an 80% or 75% role ahead of Blake Corum. That happened in snaps a little bit. Snaps were 35-16 Kyren, but carries were only 12-8 Kyren ahead of Blake Corum. They both saw 2 targets. So, yeah, even in a really big game, Blake Corum was still a decent part of the Rams.
One note that I did have, the Rams have been using a lot of 13 personnel, 3 tight end sets. They use less in this game, but when they did use it, completely ineffective. Out of 13 personnel, the Rams averaged 2.7 yards per play against Seattle. I wonder if that is just like a sort of like a mid-season fad. And after a game where they were completely ineffective using that personnel package, they may kind of push that to the side, especially after Tyler Higbee, who's, the number 1 tight end technically for the Rams, after he got hurt.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that we're going to see that 13. And I know that people were worried about that because it was affecting, in theory, Puka Nacua.
Yeah, they may be able to implement some like conservative stuff because they have a pretty soft schedule here coming up. Bucks, Panthers, Cardinals in their next 3 games for the Rams, who I know there's a lot of people that think the Rams are the best team in the NFL right now. And so these 3 games they should be able to control if they are. Again, Bucks, Panthers, Cardinals, next 3. Vikings. Well, seems like Vikings fans, or at least some Vikings fans, the internet for sure, are ready to throw in the towel on J.J. McCarthy. McCarthy in a home game against the Bears here, really good spot with Justin Jefferson and Addison healthy. J.J. McCarthy goes 16 of 32 for just 150 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 more interceptions in this loss to the Bears. On the season, McCarthy is completing just 52.9% of his passes. That is worse than Anthony Richardson was in his rookie year, worse than Fields, worse than Zach Wilson. Now, I get that McCarthy's dealt with some drops. He's also throwing the ball like as hard as he possibly can at people like 6 yards away from him. I talk to my kids about this. You got to throw catchable passes, man. I shouldn't be saying that to NFL quarterbacks. So, yeah, I get that he's had drops. Maybe some of that's on him. I saw Jordan Addison have a really bad drop over the middle on what was a really good throw from McCarthy at least. But, yeah, Evan, what's your panic level on McCarthy right now coming out of this loss to the Bears?
Yeah, it's like at 10. I saw Rosenthal, the old boss, comparing J.J. McCarthy to Tim Tebow.
Oh, no.
I mean, that's when you're reaching. You're at the basement. Oh, man. And the fans know it. Like, the Vikings fans were booing J.J. McCarthy hard during the game. On passes 10-plus yards downfield, J.J. McCarthy went 4 of 14 for 76 yards and an interception. I don't know what the Vikings are supposed to do. Like, go to Max Brosmer? I was actually thinking that they might actually go to Max Brosmer, but I don't think that they will. But they know that this is a really, really big problem.
Well,
it's freaking brutal. He's the worst quarterback in the NFL right now.
Yeah, I mean, and they tried to like soft bench him. They can deny it all they want. J.J. McCarthy was ready to play, and they stuck with Carson Wentz until Carson Wentz hurt his shoulder, and now he's out for the season. So like the Vikings know it too. And the other reason you can tell the Vikings do it, Kevin O'Connell does not do negative PROE. Kevin O'Connell is one of the most pass-centric play callers in the NFL. And when McCarthy's under center, they've been negative PROE plenty. So, it's scary. And it's scary for Jefferson and Addison too. And I don't think it's going to get better anytime soon. Their next 2 games, at Packers,
at Green Bay,
at Seahawks after that.
Oh, my God.
So, I mean, it's just really, really rough right now, the way that J.J. McCarthy is playing football for Jefferson.
That's legitimately sad. I think we might see Max Brosmer within the next 2 games.
Let's go to the Saints. Saints were on a bye. They will come out of it to host the injury-ravaged Falcons on Sunday. It's certainly a winnable spot for the Saints. Although the Saints really shouldn't be trying to win games, in my opinion. The race for the number 1 overall pick is on. Remember, the game before the bye was the first game the Saints had without Rashid Shaheed. And I thought Tyler Shuck actually played a good game. Went on the road to Carolina, had 128.9 passer rating. So a little bit of optimism there. But yeah, anything for you on the Saints as they come out of their bye, Evan?
You just mentioned everything that I had on the Saints coming out of the bye.
Let's go to the New York Giants. This was the first game of the Mike Kafka era. You also get the Jameis Winston experience, but that underwhelmed. He only gets off 29 attempts, no touchdowns. Now, it was windy. They were facing good Packers defense, no Neighbors, no Slayton. So I guess I'm not that surprised that Winston failed. We should get Jackson Dart back from protocol this week, although that's not a lock yet. Evan, thoughts on Giants game against the Packers?
And, as we've discussed, apparently during his time off, the Giants went to Jackson Dart, you need to calm down with the running. You have to protect yourself with the running. And so, when he comes back, is he going to, because Jackson Dart was killing in fantasy. Mm-hmm. A lot of it was just sheer rushing touchdowns. He had 7 rushing touchdowns and 7 starts or something like that. I don't think they're going to call anything designed for him in scoring position. So I would lower also, he's got, this mess of a receiver core. But anyways, yeah, Jameis, he had 4 interceptions dropped by Packers defenders in this game. They still had a chance to win. And at the end, it looked like a terrible pass into the back left corner of the end zone by Jameis Winston, straight to a Packers defender. But apparently Jalen Hyatt, who, he's not long for New York. He cut off his route. He was supposed to be there to go get that. But yeah, it was exactly as the sportsbooks drew it up. The Packers won by 7 points, and that was exactly the spread.
We had talked about maybe Kafka, a change that he would make would be get away from Singletary and go to more Tracy, as Singletary was a Daboll guy. That didn't happen. Snaps were 37-35 in favor of Tracy. Opportunities were 23-16 in favor of Tracy, and Singletary got a couple goal line looks here. So it was a pretty even split here, even with Brian Daboll gone. Last note on the Giants, they do have 2 really good spots. Commanders in week 15 and Raiders in week 17. If you can get Jackson Dart in there, Darius Slayton in there, those are spots worth noting. And again, we are doing the preparing for the playoffs show tomorrow. So if you have a team that's getting ready for the playoffs, be sure to tune in to that show on YouTube and audio Wednesday. Eagles. Eagles won the game, man, but this was a pathetic offensive performance. 3.9 yards per play at home on Sunday night against the Lions. They improved to 8-2. They get the pass interference call at the end to go their way. One thing that I noticed was they were really trying to force it to A.J. Brown in this game. And I get the squeaky wheel. He was whining to the media. He was whining on social media. He had a meeting with the freaking owner to whine. But trying to force it to A.J. Brown, I don't know if that's the Eagles' game. He turns 11 targets into just 749-0. So ugly offensive performance from the Eagles. Evan, what do you think happened here, and any concern for you going forward on Eagles?
Yeah, and this is in a game where A.J. Brown was effectively shadowed by Rock Ya-Sin, who essentially took him out of the game. It's fair to be concerned that A.J. Brown is reaching, a cliff a little bit here.
Had a hamstring injury also.
The hamstring injury as well, but not being able to beat up on Rock Ya-Sin. Now, they do have Dallas coming up.
Yep.
So, we'll get to that when we do our shows later in the week. But I think it's absolutely fair to concern, based on what we've seen weeks 1 through 11, that A.J. Brown is starting to reach some sort of a cliff.
Yeah. And people would say that Jalen Hurts isn't playing that well either. There's some reports out there that the locker room, that the team is not thrilled with the way Jalen Hurts has played this season. I'm not sure I agree there. Seems like we go through this every year with the Eagles, where they say Hurts can't do it, Hurts can't throw. And then next thing you know, Hurts is out here when it counts, throwing for 300 yards in the Super Bowl and stuff like that.
Yeah, and this was a game where Devonta Smith didn't do anything either.
Yeah.
Nobody really did anything in this game.
Really bad for the Eagles, though. We're kind of bearing the lead here. Lane Johnson, one of the most valuable offensive linemen in the NFL, is going to be out 4 to 6 weeks with a Liz Frank injury. As someone who has a bunch of Saquon Barkley in best ball, it is just so obvious that I don't think Saquon's lost any juice. I don't think Saquon's role has been anything that much worse. The offensive line has given him so much less room to run. He's getting hit behind the line so often, and Lane Johnson going out is not going to help that whatsoever. So Thorne will have his updated rankings on Thursday for rest of season offensive line, but I can't imagine they don't drop significantly with Lane Johnson out. Evan, how big a deal do you think this is for Saquon and the rest of this offense?
Well, they do have Fred Johnson, who they can plug in. And, I mean, he's at least like maybe a league average right tackle. But Lane Johnson is a true difference maker. Maybe the offensive – I think that Brandon Thorne, at least before the season, thought that Lane Johnson was the best offensive line in the league. And maybe there's a gap between Lane Johnson and the next guy. But Lane Johnson has been hurt a ton this year. And, Cam Jurgens has been hurt. And, Steen at right guard has not been the same as Mekhi Becton was last year. We've talked about it a lot. Like, the offensive line just has not been the same in Philly.
Yeah, not good. I will say what is good for Philly is their remaining schedule. Evan mentioned Dallas next, then Chicago, Chargers, Raiders, Commanders, Bills in the Fantasy Championship week, Commanders in week 18. I mean, that is one of the best schedules that you'll get from an offensive perspective here, rest of season. You can always look at our rest of season DVP stuff if you have in-season or draft kit there on the tools and research tab in NFL. 49ers. So Brock Purdy returned for this game. 49ers put 41 points on the Cardinals. Christian McCaffrey, just insane, dominant. Again, another 35 fantasy points. But we got to see Purdy, CMC, Kittle, Jennings, and Pearsall all healthy at the first time for what I think was the first time all season. So that was really, really good. Evan, go ahead on 49ers with Purdy back in the saddle.
Yeah, and we can talk about the individual guys, but I'm really optimistic that this San Francisco 49ers team down the stretch, assuming that these core dudes stay healthy, and considering what they have gone through on defense, losing Fred Warner, losing Nick Bosa, losing Tatum Bethune, who was playing in place of Fred Warner. Like, they're down to their third string middle linebacker. They have the lowest pass rush win rate in the entire NFL. This is going to be a shootout team.
Yeah.
So, and I know Ricky Pearsall had nothing. He was running clear out routes. He did play 85% of the snaps. If you look at like some of the all 22 of him running routes, he looked very, very explosive. And I know he got a zero. No one should have been playing him anyways in this first game back, because Kyle Shanahan said that he would be limited. Mm-hmm. He wasn't in terms of his snaps, but he was not. They were not throwing him targets. But I would be very optimistic about all members of this offense, because they're going to score a lot of points. When this offense has their skill position players in place, they can be as efficient as any team in the NFL, and they're going to have to be to compensate for a defense that has lost so many dudes that they become a swinging gate. And Brock Purdy looked great, and he talked after the game about he didn't feel the toe at all. And Kittle has been balling now for weeks consecutively. Jaywan Jennings looks healthy. Man, I'd be very, very excited to own dudes in the 49ers offense at this moment.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, the defense is just inept right now. And that was one of the reasons that I felt pretty good about playing Brissett and Dortch and McBride. And Michael Wilson was like, God, this defense is so bad for the 49ers, and it's not going to get better because all these guys are like out for the season. I will say Brandon Ayuk practice window still not opening this week. I mean, at this point, if Brandon Ayuk comes back this season, I'd almost be surprised. And so you're going to see this tightish core. Now, Purdy only dropped back 27 times in this game. What Evan's talking about is we're going to get into games where Brock Purdy might drop back 40 times, 45 times. And so, yeah, you can really get some Purdy doubles and triples going in DFS here for sure rest of season. We'll talk more about that on Friday. Seahawks. So this was the big NFC West game. Seahawks fall behind the Rams 14-3 early. That forces Sam Darnold into 46 dropbacks. I don't think that's the way Seattle wants to play. Darnold ends up throwing 4 interceptions. Seattle falls to 7-3. Evan, what do you think of Seahawks' loss to the Rams?
Kind of kicking myself for not taking the under on this game, because you remember we talked about, like, man, these are two like elite defenses, and the total was like 49 points, and it really didn't even come close. Although I'll tell you what, the Seahawks did move the ball against the Rams. The Seahawks racked up 414 total yards on offense. That's what, I'm not a math major, but the equivalent of 100 yards rushing and 314 yards passing, like that's usually enough to win. It's just Darnold threw 4 picks.
Yeah.
And the Seahawks only wound up scoring 1 touchdown. One concern I have, Gray Zabel, who's been a stud guard for the Seahawks, drafted in the first round, left with an injury. It does sound like they're not worried about him missing too much time. And they do have the Titans coming up next, although he would come in very handy against Tavondre Sweat and Jeffrey Simmons. But that's a little bit of a situation to monitor after the Seahawks the previous week had lost their starting center, Jalen Sundell. But if you want to talk about it, I know that Mike McDonald was talking about how he wanted to increase Kenneth Walker's usage.
Yeah, and, he said this before, but if you watch this game, it's just obvious that Kenneth Walker is giving them so much more explosive ability than Zach Charbonnet. And yards per carry is not the greatest stat, but it's so stark when guys are on the same team with the same offensive line. Kenneth Walker, 4.5 yards per carry this season. Zach Charbonnet, 3.3. And yeah, there's a lot of lists like, oh yeah, but Charbonnet does the short yardage stuff, the success rate stuff. Walker's ahead in success rate also. And so after the game, maybe it was Monday, Mike McDonald says, I think Ken Walker's showing that he's earning more opportunities to get the ball. All 3 backs are doing a great job, and I think he really felt Ken yesterday, even in the pass game too, like on checkdowns, and finding him late in the play just shows you that Walker's such an explosive player with the ball in his hands. So he said this before, but I feel like this time it feels a little bit more real and will probably nudge Walker a little bit higher, the split than we had last week between Walker and Charbonnet.
JSN.
Yeah.
Dude, that catch down the left sideline.
The one-hander, yeah.
That he made with one hand. He made that look so easy. Dude is just a natural.
It's really insane. By the way, AJ Barner, 10 catches here. I just want to note this. It's tough to click him in season long, but for DFS, not only can he get 10 catches in game as he did here, but they've been using him on tush-push stuff. AJ Barner has a carry. He has 6 carries in his last 4 games. And so a little bit of an added bonus there on AJ Barner. The Shaheed stuff, I was a little worried as someone who has a decent amount of Shaheed that going to Seattle would actually be worse for him. And people kind of laughed at me. I mean, he did have a long touchdown here knocked away at the last second, but 227-0 on 5 targets. Cooper Kupp ran a few more routes than Shaheed did. So, I think it'll be better for Shaheed. He'll keep getting his feet under the system and everything, but I don't think that it's like way better for Shaheed or even any better for Shaheed in Seattle than it would have been in New Orleans. Let's go to Tampa. This was a windy game in Buffalo. Bucs still put up 32 points, but they lose the game. Big story was this wild Sean Tucker outing. I mean, Rachaad White started, but we've talked plenty over the last 1 to 2 weeks about Sean Tucker getting more and more work at the expense of Rachaad White. Sean Tucker gets the hot hand here, pops off for 37 DraftKings points. So we'll see what Bucky Irving does this week in practice, if he'll be able to play. But Sean Tucker, another really big, impressive game. Evan, what do you think of Bucs' loss in Buffalo?
Yeah, and Todd Bowles was saying after the game that they were going in with the hot hand. Rachaad White isn't good.
Right.
Like Rachaad White is good at certain things. Like he's a decent pass catcher, and they love him as a blitz protector. He's really not a very good runner, like whatsoever. I mean, he's like below replacement level. Sean Tucker is at least replacement level, if not a little bit better. I mean, Sean Tucker's had some big games when he's gotten opportunities. This was a really good matchup for him. And on his 43-yard touchdown, I mean, he was motoring. He hit 21.1 miles per hour on the radar gun. So I mean, he's got some long speed too, and he weighs like 223 pounds. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see about Bucky Irving, but they did the hot hand thing, and Sean Tucker showed it, and he capitalized.
Yeah. After the game, Bowles was asked if Sean Tucker earned more playing time. He basically said, the standard hot hand stuff like Evan talked about. We have got 3 good backs. We'll play them all. We'll rotate them. Whichever one gets hot, we'll get the most touches. It would surprise me if Bucky is healthy, if he is not the one that separates here, but he's going to have to be eased in at first. And same with Chris Godwin, who might be eased into practice here this week. I do want to say on Igbuka, this was a tough spot. Bills are a massive run funnel. It was really windy. I think Igbuka, people are disappointed with lately. He's had some tough games. He had the hamstring and some non-ideal setups. Has to play the Rams this week, but then after that, Igbuka and the Bucs get Cardinals, Saints, Falcons, Panthers, Dolphins to end the fantasy season. So I'm still optimistic and still want to be holding Emeka Igbuka.
Yeah, the week before, he went for like 115 and a touchdown against New England.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be worried about Igbuka. We've talked about the Bills being a super, super run funnel. And, they had just gotten back Christian Benford and Teron Johnson. So the Bills secondary was at full strength. I would brush off 5 for 40. You should be able to live with that anyways. Igbuka had 9 targets.
Last NFC team is the Washington football team. This was the game in Spain on Sunday morning. Commanders lose to the Dolphins in overtime while playing without Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin. Biggest story to me was the expected. Commanders featuring Chris Rodriguez over Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt on early downs now. McNichols remains the pass down back. In this game, they somehow got off 28 running back carries. So JCM still got 9. But in a lot of games, this is going to look way worse. They do get the bye here, Evan. The big story during the bye will be, will Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin come back for this team, or are they going to wave the white flag? Evan, thoughts on Commanders game against the Dolphins?
I mean, I think you pretty well summed it up.
The one thing that I would say is in fantasy, I'd still be trying to sell Debo. They have their bye here. McLaurin might be back. Mariota might play quarterback the rest of the season. They still have to play the Broncos, Vikings, and Eagles. So I know Debo had a good game here. Hard for me to see that going forward. Let's flip it over to the AFC now. Baltimore Ravens went to windy Cleveland and did not play well, but they squeezed out a 23-16 win. Ravens now 5-5. Heavy favorites to win the division, minus 280 or so. I thought the Browns did a great job on Lamar Jackson, like concerted effort to keep him from running. He only runs 4 times for 10 yards. And then they also sack him 5 times and pick him off twice. So really impressive game from Cleveland defense. Evan, what do you think of Ravens' performance in that ugly wind game?
Yeah, I remember writing this game up and I was like, goodness gracious, the Ravens team total was 23 points. That just feels so low. I know the game's at Cleveland. Myles Garrett is a freaking X-Man. Myles Garrett has 11 sacks over his last 4 games, and he has 22 tackles for loss on the season. Myles Garrett led the NFL in tackles for loss last year with 22. He has 22 through 10 games this year. Anyways.
It's over for Benito, though, on this stuff. Not over, but this Myles Garrett stuff has gone too far. Like
we don't root for injuries here, but literally that's the only way that Nick Benito would even have a chance to win it over Myles Garrett. But the team total wound up being exactly spot on. The Ravens scored 23. And Lamar Jackson, he hasn't had a big rushing game. And I think he's looked fine. But since coming back, he has not had a big rushing game. And also, he doesn't have a 300-yard passing game all season. So do you think he's going to be able to turn it on at some point?
Yeah.
He does have the Jets coming up, but I don't know that he's going to need to do a whole lot against the Jets.
Well, next 4 games are Jets, Bengals, Steelers, Bengals. So these are 4 really good spots for Lamar to, even if he doesn't go for a ton of volume, flash that really high touchdown rate, that really high touchdown throwing rate. And so, yeah, I'm excited for Ravens stuff. This was a really tough spot. Very good Cleveland defense and all the wind. And so, yeah, Jets, Bengals, Steelers, Bengals. I'm excited about Ravens stuff still. Couple plays in this game that caught my eye. Mark Andrews has been doing tush push for the Ravens. He lines up for a tush push. Instead of tush pushing, he spins out of it and runs for a 35-yard touchdown. Eagles should be doing this stuff too, man. Like, if everybody's going to line up in the middle and try to stop tush push, Mark Andrews showed what you could do. That was an awesome play. And then Zay Flowers. I know Evan likes Zay Flowers. I like Zay Flowers too. I couldn't believe he got caught from behind on the 5-yard line. This was a 45-yard pass play. Inexcusable not to score. Gets caught from behind. I ended up losing a game in my highest stakes best ball stuff. Too high stakes for me to even mention on here. And yeah, we ended up losing by 1 point, and we had Zay Flowers. It was so tilting that he couldn't score there.
In the league that I mentioned earlier, we had a lineup decision between Cade Otton and Mark Andrews. And I was like, dude, we got to go with Cade Otton. He had 12 targets the previous week. The other people decided on Mark Andrews, and I'm like, whatever, freaking amateurs. Mark Andrews wound up, crushing Cade Otton because of that 35-yard touchdown run. They call it the Hurricane. That's the move for Mark Andrews.
Cool play.
But Mark Andrews gets like 5 or fewer targets in every single game. So obviously we needed that.
Yeah, I mean, he is a touchdown hound, and I think Mark Andrews will have a really good chance to score touchdowns. Last notes for me on Ravens was Justice Hill was out for this game. So everybody was like, oh, maybe we'll see a lot of Keaton Mitchell. Keaton Mitchell, 16 snaps. Rasheen Ali, 12. Derrick Henry, 33. Keaton Mitchell, only 9 routes. Now, he did see 3 targets on those. But yeah, I see Keaton Mitchell as the direct backup to Derrick Henry, not the direct backup to Justice Hill.
One more note, Derrick Henry, it's starting to get a little chilly out.
Yes.
And it hurts to tackle Derrick Henry when it's chilly.
D-Hember.
And defenders start thinking about their families. Right around, Thanksgiving, it's the holidays, you're thinking about your family. And so this is the time that Derrick Henry looked great in this game. He hit like 21 miles per hour on a run. I mean, it's unbelievable how he has just lost nothing. He just keeps trucking past the age of 30, clearing all the benchmarks. What an unbelievable career.
D-Hember is coming for Derrick Henry. And yeah, some really good spots for the Ravens to control games and get Derrick Henry some of those big 100-plus yard outings. Bills. It was not easy, but Josh Allen puts on the Superman cape and just wills the Bills to 44 points to beat the Bucs. Josh Allen threw for 3 touchdowns and ran for 3 touchdowns. He had 47 fantasy points, and he does it with Tyrell Shavers and Gabe Davis and Josh Palmer as weapons. Keon Coleman was a healthy scratch here after missing a meeting Friday. They didn't have Dalton Kincaid. Probably won't have him again. This was full Superman mode from Josh Allen, and why you could make a case for him as a 3rd-round fantasy pick this season. Evan, what do you think of Bills' performance against the Bucs?
Yeah, it was just all Josh Allen. That's all we really have to talk about here. I guess we could talk about the wide receiver rotation. Keon Coleman out. The Bills used 5 wide receivers in the game, and 5 wide receivers that each ran between 23 and 30 routes, or played between 23 and 30 snaps. I don't know. Just the most even 5 wide receiver rotation that you've ever seen in your life. Tyrell Shavers had, a big play downfield, and his box score looks good. Nobody saw more than 5 targets either. Nobody on the entire team. There have been back to Josh Allen. There have been 3 games in NFL history, even going back past the merger, where a player has had 3 or more passing touchdowns and 3 or more rushing touchdowns. Josh Allen has 2 of the 3, and the other one was Otto Graham in 1954. I'm sure that you remember that one very well, Adam. But, just a different level of player, Josh Allen, obviously. And he is now the number 1 overall fantasy quarterback in points per game by a margin of more than 3 points.
Yeah.
So he's making a huge, huge difference.
So Dawson Knox led all pass catchers in routes. They got very flat at wide receiver. I think one of the reasons was Khalil Shakir came into this game very banged up. And I actually thought there was a chance Khalil Shakir would sit. I was surprised he wasn't listed on the final injury report there on Friday, but they are on a short week here. So I am watching Khalil Shakir's health status. Does not look like Dalton Kincaid will be back here for this game. The Keon Coleman stuff, there was rumors that they wanted to bench him anyways. And then they come out and say, oh, it's because he missed a Friday meeting. Do you buy that story, Evan? Or do you think they just wanted to sit Keon Coleman down here and come up with some excuse about a meeting? I think they're probably telling the truth, but also look at CeeDee Lamb or George Pickens. If you're a good player and they like you and you miss a meeting, you're probably still going to end up playing after maybe some initial discipline. So how bad do you think it is for Keon Coleman right now as part of the Bills?
I mean, I think that he's going to play on Thursday night.
Yeah, me too.
I think, but I think his role could be scaled back, and he could just fall into being one of these 5 wide receivers for the Bills that plays, a certain number of snaps and doesn't get more than 3 or 4 targets. I mean, he's done nothing to justify being treated as a number one receiver, which they tried to do. I mean, they tried to treat Keon Coleman as their number one receiver, and he ain't got it.
Yeah.
So I think he'll just be another guy in the rotation with Tyrell Shavers and Khalil Shakir and Gabe Davis now,
Mecole
or
Hardman.
Curtis Samuel or Josh Palmer. Like, it's just another guy.
Here's an idea, Evan. This feels like something Evan would say. What if you move Keon Coleman, give him some cheeseburgers, and move him to tight end? Because he has shown an ability only to win on the inside. They refuse to play him in the slot. Maybe he could be like a Gadsden type or something like that, So I don't know. I would be getting outside the box with Keon Coleman.
Absolutely. That has been suggested. I mean, obviously he's not winning in separation terms as an X receiver.
Right.
So, yeah, big slot receiver. Absolutely. That should be his next opportunity. But I mean, I don't think that they're going to do that during the season, but maybe down the road.
Right. Bengals. The Flacco magic runs out a bit here as Bengals go to Pittsburgh and manage just 12 points. Jamar Chase got 10 targets against the Steelers, produces just 3 catches for 30 yards, and also allegedly spits on or around or something Jalen Ramsey and gets suspended here for week 12. So really, really disappointing outing for Flacco, for Bengals all around. Evan, what do you think of Spitgate from Jamar Chase and any other Bengals thoughts?
Well, it almost felt like the Bengals season ended in week 11 because they lost Jamar Chase, now going up against New England, and they lost the game, and they've now lost 3 in a row. And, there was a lot of optimism with Joe Burrow returning to practice last week. And now it's like, if they get bounced out of the playoff race, I don't think they're going to bring back Joe Burrow. Although Zach Taylor did address that and said, oh, well, Joe Burrow wants to play. Yeah. But I don't know. I don't know if they can justify that to themselves.
Yeah, for sure. I would want to note that Jamar Chase is appealing this suspension. So we're recording this Tuesday around 2 p.m. Eastern. He's appealing. I haven't heard yet, but apparently his case sounds like a weak one to me. I think his case is something like, I spit, but it wasn't on Jalen Ramsey. If I wanted to spit in his face, I would have spit in his face. In other words, he's saying like some kind of intent thing, but I assume the suspension is going to hold, but we'll see there. If it doesn't, you're going to see T. Higgins on Christian Gonzalez here a lot, I think, on Sunday.
Yeah. T. Higgins does have a really, really nice history in games that Jamar Chase has missed. I was going to say, for Tom Pelissero pointed out that if Jamar Chase misses this game, he will lose $500,000.
Yeah. How rich?
That is freaking. I mean, I know that he's got a lot of money, okay, but $500,000, that kind of moves the needle for just about everybody.
By the way, one other thing I want to note, in the past, when Jamar Chase has been out, the biggest beneficiary has not actually been Yoshi Voss or anything like that. It's been Mike Gesicki. But Mike Gesicki remains out for this game, so we'll see. We'll talk about this more on Friday, but Tanner Hudson or Noah Fant could be beneficiaries. I just don't think they're necessarily good enough to do it. Last note for me on Bengals. People just underestimate how important this Samaje Perine injury is to Chase Brown. Chase Brown saw 8 targets for a 20% share and handled 18 of 21 running back carries. That's just monster stuff. And I thought that he ran really well. So definitely good for Chase Brown as long as Perine is out. Huge, huge boost to Chase Brown.
Chase Brown has been playing at a high level for, 6 weeks at this point.
Yeah.
And it's really good to see because after the first 4 weeks or whatever, it was like, oh, Chase Brown, he's a total bum. I fell for it. But Chase Brown is like actually good. And we're getting to see that on a weekly basis, and it's nice.
Yeah, I mean, and Flacco and Burrow coming back would be even better as long as Perine stays out, though. That's the big thing to me. Like quarterback, whatever, but you got to keep Perine out for have these big Chase Brown games, I think. All right, Browns put up that good fight against the Ravens. They lose. Dylan Gabriel goes down with a concussion during this game, and so we get our first look in the NFL at Shedeur Sanders, and it was ugly. Shedeur, 4 of 16 for 47 yards, 1 interception, takes to sacks. Stats looked really bad, Evan. People are going to say he didn't get any first team reps, yada, yada, yada. 4 of 16 at the NFL level is like wild. What did you think of Shedur's debut and the Browns, Evan?
The discourse surrounding this situation. I mean, I fell down the wormhole or the rabbit hole or whatever kind of a hole it was. And I just read about it, for like what people were saying and the first team reps crap. And like, you got NFL players out here being like, dude, like backup quarterbacks don't get first team reps. And then you got like fans arguing with the players saying, what do you mean they're setting him up to fail? And like Josina Anderson, like what is going on?
Yeah, something weird is going on there.
Something strange is going on. Shedeur Sanders, I understand that Mel Kiper had him really high in his rankings or whatever. He's in the 5th round. He goes in the 5th round. He barely had a winning record at Colorado. We had Mike Renner on, the best draft analyst ever born. He had, Shedeur Sanders as like a comparable talent to Andy Dalton, took 1 billion sacks at Colorado, is out here he's going to be a sack machine. He's starting this week, right?
They said if Gabriel gets cleared, they're going to go with Gabriel, but guys rarely have been getting cleared on 1 week. So I think we're going to start with Shedeur, yes.
Max Crosby is going to bury this poor kid over and over and over again. No, I mean, the discourse is just, it makes you dumber by reading it.
It's going to be like the biggest story in the NFL this week if he starts, which like, I don't even want to hear it. Like, I'm already sick of talking about it. It doesn't really matter, like it just sucks. But I am like, let's give him a full week of starters reps and let's see him play. I think that's totally fine. Like, who cares?
Of course. Yeah. And that's what he's going to get. Yeah. So, what do you think about Quinshaw Judkins? Because he was gangbusters for about 4 weeks when he got rolling, and he has not done. And I understand that the situation is really, really difficult, but he hasn't done anything in like an extended period of time. He's at like 3 yards per carry over his last like 5 or 6 games.
I mean, when your passing game throws so close to the line of scrimmage and you have no weapons, you can start to see how it's hard to get running lanes. I still think Judkins is pretty good talent and he'll be fine. What I would like to see is remove Jerome Ford's snaps. Jerome Ford played 17 snaps in this game and Dylan Sampson only got 6. Jerome Ford's not going to be on this team next year, most likely. Let's see Dylan Sampson and Judkins in some kind of like thunder and lightning down the stretch here. I would love to see that if anyone at the Browns is listening there. More Sampson, less Ford. Let's go to Texans. So last week on the Texans, we noted that the Woody Marks takeover happened. This past week, week 11, cemented the Woody Marks takeover. He dominated the backfield, 18 of 21 running back carries, outsnapped Nick Chubb 46-18. Dare Ogunawable only played 5 snaps. The production has been frustratingly bad, though, for Woody Marks. So, and like his underlying metrics, Woody Marks rushing stuff has not been good either. Evan, thoughts on Woody Marks? 2 straight games as a feature back here, and anything else Texans related?
I think his production has been okay. The Titans were they had back Tavondre Sweat and Jeffrey Simmons in this game, and the Texans have one of the worst offensive lines in football. So it's not totally surprising to me that Woody Marks was inefficient. I'd like to see more production from him in the passing game. He's only got 3 catches over the last 2 weeks, but he's playing a ton of snaps. He's got a nice matchup on paper coming up against Buffalo Thursday Night Football. You can run on the Bills big time. So I think that we'll be able to maybe draw a few more conclusions after this game, because this is a game too where the Texans defense is so good. Texans might have the best defense in the league. Texans defense is so good that they should be able to keep the game in neutral script so that Woody Marks can get fed, and he continues to get all the scoring position stuff ahead of Nick Chubb.
Yeah, I mean, there's very few running backs in the NFL that are actually true every down, 3 down, plus goal line backs. Woody Marks has that role right now. I agree with Evan. I'm really disappointed that he has not gotten more targets. That was Woody Marks' calling card coming out of college.
Like 260 receptions in his college career.
You got to highlight his strengths. You got to throw him the football, run some screens, do what you got to do. I think throw him the football more will help a ton. By the way, this CJ Stroud concussion, man, He's already been ruled out for Thursday. I'm worried about him at this point. I believe this is 3 games now he's missing with the concussion. And so I know it's a short week, but still 3 weeks out with the concussion suggests that it has been some complications for him getting through protocol. So a little bit worried about CJ Stroud. Hope he is okay. Last note for me.
The shower narrative between Davis Mills and Nico Collins.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
that's intense. That's an intense showering for 5 years, I think now.
Yes, I believe Evan noted on Sunday not only the same draft class but the same round they were drafted in. Nico Collins
these guys are close,
and Davis Mills, and Nico Collins just a baller, man. Just like really, really, really good at football. They still are doing this thing where they won't play Jalen Noel. Jalen Noel 14 routes in this game, 42 for Nico, 27 Higgins, 26 Kirk, 24 Hutchinson. So despite Jalen Noel really being productive on a per route basis, he still continues to operate as the number 4 receiver.
Yeah, this Thursday night game, and I'm in the process of writing up. It'll be posted tonight. It's a battle between teams that use 5-man wide receiver committees, and it's just like, you got Nico Collins, obviously, but these teams they don't play like 3 receivers like most normal teams. They play 5 guys, and it can be pretty frustrating.
Yeah, it's going to be a wild showdown slate because like on Showdown, all of those guys are in play depending on their price. Colts were on a bye. They will come out of it for a very big test at Arrowhead on Sunday. Couple of notes for me on the Colts. Daniel Jones, we saw some cracks before the bye. At Pittsburgh in week 9, Daniel Jones threw 3 interceptions, took 5 sacks. They lost. And in that Germany game in week 10, Daniel Jones took 7 sacks. There's another interception. They barely win in overtime. It was just like some of these things that we saw with the Giants with taking sacks and turning the ball over. Those had cropped up the previous 2 weeks. So keeping an eye on that. Evan, any other Colts thoughts for you as they come out of their bye?
That's all I got. Just hoping to see better pocket awareness for Daniel Jones. That's something that plagued him for much of his career with the Giants, and as you mentioned, has started to pop back up over his last 2-3 games.
One more thing on the Colts. This Alec Pierce takeover, man. I'm curious how sticky that is as it comes out of their bye. This is a tough spot for Alec Pierce, I think, in Arrowhead, but him and Pittman, I feel like we're going to have it pretty close in projection, and we'll see there. But, the body of work on Pittman, I think, is better longer, but Pierce has really been balling. So that'll be an interesting projection there.
One more thing, the Colts coming out of this bye super, super healthy. And it's not just they have not lost a single week 1 starter from their offense. All 11 guys are ready to go coming out of the bye. That is rare, man. And we talk about it, and it's boring analysis and everything else, but winning the battle of attrition can be so important. They got the Chiefs coming up, as you mentioned. That'll be an awesome game. That'll be a huge, huge game.
All right. We go to the Chiefs now. In last week, Sunday, Chiefs lose to the Broncos in Denver. This was a huge AFC West game because now the Broncos are 9-2. Chiefs are 5-5. So it's going to take a lot for Chiefs to come back and win the division here. Story of this game for the Chiefs, I thought, and really the last couple of years, has been Chiefs' inability to hit the deep ball. Early in this game, Xavier Worthy was wide open, nude, if you will, for a 60-yard touchdown, and Mahomes just missed him. I mean, there's been so many times that Worthy has been stark naked, and Mahomes just cannot find him. So I don't know what's going on.
I've never heard that sports terminology before.
And it just keeps happening. So it's frustrating for Worthy. It's frustrating for Mahomes. They cannot hit the deep ball. Any more thoughts on Chiefs' loss in Denver, Evan?
Yeah. I mean, Tyquan Thornton caught one. Yeah. He made an awesome play on his, but that was the only one that they hit the entire game. Man, it just feels so weird to see the Chiefs come out of a bye and lose. The Chiefs also, with Patrick Mahomes at quarterback, they have been unbelievable in 1-score games. This year, the Chiefs are 0-5 in 1-score games. So the tables have been turned here on the Chiefs in 2025. And I think that they have very little margin for error, obviously at 5-5. I think that they might be able to lose one more game and get into the playoffs, but I don't think that they can lose 2.
Yeah, for sure. It's crazy.
And the Broncos are like above 70% to win the AFC West. Like the Broncos pretty much have the AFC West.
One One thing to watch on the Chiefs for me is this Isaiah Pacheco status. I haven't seen an update on him lately, but Kareem Hunt took some huge hits in this game. I mean, he was really grinding. I thought he played a good game, but he was definitely getting banged up. And despite that, they still don't trust Brashard Smith. Just 12 snaps in this game for Brashard Smith. Final note for me on the Chiefs. Hollywood Brown has devolved into like a timeshare with Tyquan Thornton. So only 19 routes in this game for Marquise Brown. Tyquan Thornton, 15. They did a lot of two tight end stuff here with Noah Gray and Travis Kelce on the field at the same time. So yeah, not the greatest run out here for Hollywood Brown. Raiders. This was an embarrassing night for the Raiders. Home game, Monday Night Football. They get down 24-9 in the first half. And in that first half, Geno Smith had 28 pass attempts and Ashton Genty had 2 rushing attempts. Genty ends up with just 6 carries for 7 yards. They lose 33-16. So the game plan here was clear. They're going to try to throw it and throw it a ton. Didn't work as expected. Evan, what do you think of Raiders' embarrassing game last night against the Cowboys?
Yeah, it just felt like a terrible game plan. I mean, obviously, I guess it's easy to say that in hindsight, but I mean, I kind of understand it trying to throw on the Cowboys. I mean, but like it didn't. The Cowboys actually have had a very high pressure rate over the course of the season, and they just added Quinnen Williams, who destroyed the interior of the Raiders' offensive line. And then Geno Smith, who had been coming out of the previous game like he couldn't even walk after the game. I don't even know what to say about the Raiders. Like I think they're going to end up firing Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly.
Well,
Brock Bowers did play 97% of the Raiders' offensive snaps. You love to see that because he had been in something of a there were limitations on his playing time up until then. He went 7 for 72 on 12 targets. But, I mean, the Raiders are just an unbelievable train wreck. It's so bad. Well, it's like the worst it's been.
And it's going to get worse. Listen to the schedule for the offense. They have to play the Browns next, then the Chargers, then the Broncos, then the Eagles, then the Texans. Next 5 games. I mean, those are 5 of the better defenses in the entire NFL that they have to face next. Certainly not ideal. Talked a lot about the selling Genty stuff on Rest of Season Top 150 show over the last month or few weeks. And hopefully you guys got that deal done. The Bowers usage was awesome. Like him and Trey Tucker are featured players and everybody else is a rotational player. So Bowers and Tucker for sure.
Myles Garrett might set the NFL sack record. I mean, he's at 15 sacks right now. He's got the freaking Raiders coming up.
Yeah. He's going to set it. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Chargers went to Jacksonville and got stomped 35-6. These offensive line woes, I mean, as we talked about last week, Thorne has them dead last in his rankings right now, this offensive line. Justin Herbert cannot do anything. He got banged up again. Vidal got banged up again. They limp into their Week 12 bye at 7-4 do the Chargers. Scary, I think, just on offensive line play alone. Evan, what do you think about Chargers as they head into their bye?
Yeah, they had Trevor Penning, who they just acquired, who was a huge bust in New Orleans as a tackle. They had him playing left tackle. I mean, their offensive line is just so far gone. We talked about it when we talked about the Jaguars. The Chargers really just didn't have the ball in this game. And when you got, 4 pass catchers plus an every down running back that you need to feed, when you only run 45 plays, like nobody's going to do well.
So Vidal sustained a thigh injury here and left the game. He was riding a bike on the sideline. I think he probably could have come back into the game if it was close. It was not. So then the question becomes, if Amari Hampton can come back in Week 13, and that seemed to be the target date for Amari Hampton, what does the split look like? I think Amari Hampton will be eased in to some degree before taking over. As someone who has a decent amount of Hampton, I am eyeing that Week 16 game, Chargers-Cowboys. Hopefully, Amari Hampton is full blast for that, but we'll be looking for updates on Hampton here during the bye week. I would not drop Kamani Vidal, though, if he can, during the bye here, because I do think he'll still have a role. An injury does not seem bad. Dolphins get their 4th win of the season. This was the Spain game, 16-13 over the Commanders in overtime. Devon Achane, I don't even know what to say at this point. We say it every week. Just a truly special player. He had a huge game here. It should have been more. I was tilting on the Sunday morning show. He got tackled at the 1-inch line and the 1-yard line and the 3-yard line in this game, did Achane, but just an incredible player. Evan, what do you think of Dolphins game against the Commanders?
Dolphins have now won 3 of their last 4.
Yeah.
So I guess clearly Chris Greer was the problem and not Mike McDaniel. But yeah, Achane, incredible season going into their bye.
After the bye, the Dolphins get to face Saints, Jets, Steelers, Bengals, Bucks to finish the fantasy season. So I think there's room for Jalen Waddle and Achane to still have some really big games here down the stretch, and I'd be happy to have them here for the stretch run as they go into their bye. Patriots. This was the Thursday game. Patriots dispatch of the lowly Jets, 27-14, moved to 9-2. Drake May continues to be right there with Matthew Stafford for NFL MVP. The story of this game was, again, Travion Henderson. Ramondre Stevenson was out. Terrell Jennings was only active for emergency. And so you get Travion for 88% of the snaps, 19 carries, 5 targets. Ground efficiency wasn't great. His longest run was just 9 yards, but catches 5 balls, scores 3 touchdowns. So another big fantasy game for Travion. I do think Ramondre is going to be back here this week, Evan. And so the big story in fantasy will be how much does Travion play with Ramondre back? Thoughts on that and anything else Patriots related?
Yeah, good news is they'll be playing against the Bengals. And so I think it's a game where Ramondre and Travion Henderson could both have good games in the same game. Over the course of the season, there have been a bunch of running back units that have done exactly that, where 2 running backs in the same game are very, very relevant in fantasy.
Yeah.
So keep playing Travion, even though obviously he's not going to play 90% of the snaps going forward like he did this past game. What stuck out to me, Stephon Diggs, who has been, they've had like kind of training wheels on him. He's a 32-year-old receiver coming off of a torn ACL. I think they did this exactly right. He had been like a 60% player up until this point. He played around 80% in this game, and he went for over 100 yards. I think that might be a sign that the Patriots are going to use Stephon Diggs closer to a full-time player down the stretch. Although Kayshon Boutte was out for this game, but I'm not sure that he affects Stephon Diggs either. Austin Hooper was also out for that game. But I like to see that at least Stephon Diggs has that they are willing to, in a specific game, use him as close to an every down player.
Yep, agreed. And Pop Douglas was actually the 4th wide receiver here. Diggs, Matt Collins, and Kyle Williams were the primary 3 wide receivers for the Patriots in this game. But I think some of that will be week to week. But yeah, it was a short week. Diggs ran 33 routes on 37 dropbacks. Great sign. Great sign. Steelers defense shows up big. And the Steelers and the Cowboys are 2 defenses, Evan. I don't know what you think about this, but Steelers and Cowboys are 2 defenses that I think their full body of work looks bad, but they could actually maybe play some decent defense down the stretch. Steelers have been getting more pressure, playing better defense lately. Cowboys get Quinn and Williams, get a bunch of guys back. They play better defense down the stretch here. I at least want to be like aware of that because they did a pretty good job here on Jamar Chase and Joe Flacco, who came into the game pretty hot. So, Evan, what do you think of Steelers' 34-12 win over the Bengals?
Yeah, we talked about it I think it was last week. Like, the Steelers have a lot of good individual players on their defense at all 3 levels. So really, you think about that, and I mean, it shouldn't be surprised. They've invested like Derek Harmon. He's a first-round pick, defensive tackle Derek Harmon. Cam Hayward is still there. Jalen Ramsey in the back end. Patrick Queen makes a lot of money. Alex Highsmith. I mean, they have a lot of individual players. So I was wondering, like, is it the coaching? Is it Terrell Austin? Is it Mike Tomlin? But they've got it together lately, and maybe they'll finish strong. Obviously, TJ Watt.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just all those dudes also, like, or the vast majority of those dudes, like, they're older. Right. They're on the wrong side of 30, so they look slow when they play fast offenses. I also wonder if it's just like the luck running out a little bit for the Joe Flacco tenure in Cincinnati. I don't know.
Yeah, agreed. Speaking of old quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers hurt his left non-throwing wrist. Now, it is a slight fracture. He wants to play through it. The team says they don't know yet if he'll be able to play through it. So I consider Rodgers 50-50 for now. If he can't go, we'll once again see Mason Rudolph. And by the way, it was against the Bengals, but Mason Rudolph was pretty good in relief here. 12 of 16 for 126 and a touchdown. Took no sacks. So yeah, what do you think? Like, do you think, well, maybe it's a loaded question, but do you think Aaron Rodgers, do you think Mason Rudolph could be an upgrade for this offense on Aaron Rodgers? Is that a crazy thought?
I think that he could be an upgrade, that Mason Rudolph could be an upgrade for DK Metcalf.
Yeah.
Because Aaron Rodgers has been intent on getting rid of the ball quickly, not taking sacks, throwing the ball short. And that's not really DK Metcalf's game. And Mason Rudolph's a backup in the NFL, okay? But his calling card has always been throwing the football down the field. And he's had some nice moments in the NFL. He's not a starter, but he's had enough moments that I think against a beatable defense like the Bears, the Steelers have coming up, it wouldn't be crazy to see DK Metcalf break out and have a big game with Mason Rudolph under center.
Yeah, again, as Evan said, good spot here at Chicago. We'll see about the weather, but a good spot in theory against Chicago. Other thing to watch was Jalen Warren ankle injury. Said he could have come back into the game if it was close, but even before he went out, obviously Kenny Gainwell was playing on third downs. When Jalen Warren went out, we saw a lot of Caleb Johnson, who continues to underwhelm here as a rookie. But yeah, watching Jalen Warren's ankle injury, I think he'll be okay, but still want to watch that. Titans. Last team is the Titans. Titans get Calvin Ridley back here finally. Oh, we got Calvin Ridley back. Great. And then he fractures his leg in this game, sadly, out for the season. So just a total debacle for the Titans at this point. They are now 1-9 on the season. Evan, any Titans thoughts coming out of their loss to the Texans?
And also they had Shamir DK suffered a chest contusion, and Alec Ayamanor suffered a hamstring injury. So it's about as bad as you could draw it up for the Titans at this point.
And they're splitting. I mean, even you could say, well, I think Tajee Spears can play. Well, I think Tony Pollard can play. They're just splitting it. And, when your team is this bad and you're splitting it, you're not going to be able to click those guys very often either. That is going to do it for another edition of Team by Team. Reminder to subscribe to YouTube because we will have a bunch of special shows coming up. Preparing for the playoffs this week. Next week, we will have Team by Team, and we'll also have 2 shows, Establish the Million, Establish the Show on the free YouTube side here for part of our Thanksgiving special, part of the Thanksgiving sale. For Evan, producer Ryan, producer Luke, for everyone behind the scenes at ETR, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.